In 2014, St. Louis is celebrating 250 years of history. To commemorate the founding of the city, the Missouri History Museum has put together an exhibit called 250 in 250. This year-long exhibit will tell the city's history through the stories of 50 people, 50 places, 50 images, 50 moments, and 50 objects. The museum's public historian shares with us selections from one of the exhibit's 5 sections.
We're in the 50 Places section of the 250 and 250 exhibit, and 50 Places looks at 50 St. Louis area locations. They could be buildings, they could be big, large sites of land, or they could just be places that exist in the minds of St. Louisans. It's not even a physical landmark, but we brought them all together with the idea being that St. Louis is a collection of incredibly diverse places, not just in terms of architecture, but in terms of their meaning and the effect they've had nationally. So we had local artist Andy Cross draw all 50 places in a giant chalkboard mural right behind me. And then just off from this, we have an area where people can find out much more information electronically about each place in a photo gallery going through each one. At the computer stations, people can go find each one of these places that are up on the wall, and they can dive further in. We have a descriptive piece about the place, why we chose it, some of the interesting aspects of it, and then a photo gallery, which, 5 to 10 photos of the place. Some of them throughout history, they're places that were formerly very noticeable, and now you would never see them. One that instantly comes to mind is Big Mound. Just on the other side of the river is Cahokia Mounds, this massive Native American former city. Back in the 12 and 1300s, this was a very large city, urban area for this Native American culture. And we had Indian mounds on the St. Louis side of the river too. And Big Mound was the largest of them. It was 100 some odd feet long, and you couldn't miss it. It was huge. In the 1860s, it became fill dirt for a railroad, and so now all that's left is a small rock marking where the biggest thing in the city used to be. So without passing on these stories, people would never know about this kind of thing. And so it's really interesting because they can see old photographs, old illustrations of where this mound was, and then see the site today and how this isn't there anymore in the physical world. The 50 places are a very diverse collection of places. We have places that St. Louisans are very familiar with, like the Gateway Arch in Forest Park. We have places that no St. Louisan could ever visit now because they've been removed from the landscape, like Hop Alley, which was our first Chinatown here in St. Louis. We've got places that everybody's proud of, like Francis Field at Washington University, which was the site of the first Olympic Games ever held in the United States. And we've got places that people are definitely not proud of, and rightfully so, like LYNCH'S slave pen, which was the largest slave dealing location in St. Louis. Everybody was throwing out their favorite landmark. Everybody was talking about the Wainwright Building or the Arch or the old courthouse or something. And a member of our exhibit team, Elizabeth Pickard, said, "When I think about the places I spend the most time at and the places where I interact with people the most, it's the grocery store." And so she put forward Schnucks should be a place, and that's a local St. Louis grocery store chain that, you'd think, why is this in a history museum? This is where I go buy my groceries, what's the big deal? But we wanted to show that even those common places you spend, maybe it's your most boring time of the week when you have to go buy groceries. There's history here too, and there's something interesting that this is such a specific part of life. So the Schnucks family story is a very interesting one in that they are a local St. Louis family, and they started with just one small store where they sold, it was a butcher shop and an ice cream store. And now they're a huge chain that still is very widely used in the St. Louis area. But looking at history from that angle, the idea of even those common places you spend a lot of time at have history was something we thought was very interesting. One of our other places we chose was just the overarching idea of home. The idea that there's so many different neighborhoods in St. Louis and there's so many different places people call home. and that home is really just as much a part of the city as all of these landmarks, maybe even more so. This is where you go and you interact and you work through all of these things in your life that later become history. So we wanted to show people that idea that history is not just a series of old military fortresses or something like that, but history can be surrounding you all the time.